Welcome back. Today we're going to do a quick overview of the Xenns top. So the top is the smaller brother to the up, I think. This one is a 1+8. So 1 dynamic driver, 8 balanced armatures. So quite a nice configuration. It's about $500 and something. I'm not sure what the exact price is these days. This one's been out for a little while. So I've seen some people have it in stock, some people don't have it in stock. Price kind of varies a little bit depending on if they're trying to get rid of their remaining sets or not. So nice looking set. Cable is nice SPC, 4-core. It's a little bit stiff, but not too bad. So let's kind of jump into it. And as I said, this one's been out for a little while. And what I noticed about the set were the mixed reviews. And this one kind of falls in the category of warm V-shaped sets rarely get very good reviews, and this one is kind of in that same ballpark. It's very hard to pull off a warm V-shaped signature with 8 balanced armatures, and it tends to always sound good. I think this one sounds really good. I think it's very enjoyable, very likable, but people tend to complain about the technicalities, the resolution, the detail, and all the things that you are expecting to hear at 8BA. Hard to pull off in a warm V-shaped signature without spending a ton of money developing drivers and acoustic ports and other things that cost a lot of money to get around limitations on the drivers that they chose and the tuning that they chose. So yeah, I think that's kind of the crux of why some of the reviews are mixed. It's just that some reviewers aren't going to score a warm V-shaped set high because it doesn't really lean into the technical aspects of 8 balanced armatures. It kind of sounds good, sounds very likable, but as far as a technical lead on it, it's not that kind of set. So you're paying a lot of money to have 8 balanced armatures, and it's really hard to hear the benefits to all 8. And also, I think the second reason, some sources are much better, less V-shaped on this set. It actually does vary quite a bit. My B1S is almost perfect. I always call that one the fixer. It tends to do really well on certain sets that don't work on other sources really well. It's much better than the topping DX5 on the top. I didn't like it at all with the topping. It sounds way too V-shaped. I probably would have returned it if I had to listen to it on the topping. It just really leans into the V-shape in the upper mids, and the reviews when you heard the treble being a bit spicy, that's exactly what you hear on the topping. So let's kind of see real quickly what they actually did here signature-wise. So another recent set, the Hype 2, kind of a very similar, refined signature in a hybrid format. So you can kind of see where Xenns top kind of V'd it out a little bit. So they gave it a little more bass, give it a little more of a warm V-shaped, and they put the upper mids up a little bit more. So this tends to just hit people sometimes okay, sometimes not. And that's where you see the mixed reviews, is this little spiciness to the treble doesn't really fit with this little bit, and it really stood out. And it also makes it a lot harder to hear what's going on out there. So yeah, I kind of see what they were going for, but with these drivers and the tuning, it's kind of okay. So pros on this one, again, fun bass level. This, bumping it up all the way out there to about 10 dB, somewhere over there. That's pretty good. That's a nice fun level. For those of you upgrading from a bassy budget set, you won't get blindsided by no bass. This one's got plenty of bass, and they actually did it quite well. Maybe the best part of the set, and easily handle genres that benefit from more bass. So yeah, I think they did pretty well in a dynamic driver. It's not the tightest, fastest dynamic driver, but as far as upgrading blind to a 8BA set, 1DD, 8BAs, I think they actually did a pretty good job of giving people a very likable level of bass. And it can definitely sound like a warm, likable, coherent hybrid. But on the con side, it can also be lean and sharp with source. And like I was talking about with the topping, when these guys bump out and that takes the lead and the emphasis, that is a little too much. It's like one or 2 dB too much, and you can actually see it. If the upper mid sounds sharp or too forward, it just skews the tuning into a set that doesn't really sound like $500. And as I said, it's not really a technical beast at all, especially in the treble area, but and that kind of hurts your scores on reviews. Smoother than sharper note style. So it's just, again, it's just not a technical, detail-driven set. It's a smoother, warmer set, and you can get that at lots of different price points, and it's just hard to justify the $500 price point for a signature that you can get at other price points. So the source, like I was just talking about, it's not everything, but it's really close on this set. And depending on your source, you can hear all the good and all the bad reviews. I have two sources, and they kind of look like this. So if anyone tells you that all sources are the same, they're probably not right. So this is my ES100, and you can kind of see the way this peaks out a little bit more. And this is my B1S, the one that I actually preferred on here. And you can kind of see it's almost, 1.5, probably 1.5, almost 2 dB difference between the two. And that's exactly what it sounds like. It takes this forward upper mid, this spicy sharpness of upper mid, and brings it down to a balanced level where it's nice and smooth, and this all kind of smooths out. So very, very nice sounding set on that particular source. On ES100, on my topping, where you hear this peak out, that's not so good, and it doesn't really sound like $500. It just sounds like it's a bit off balance. So the bass boosted Harman, as you kind of see, boosted Harman here-ish. Yeah, so you can kind of see the Harman curve here. You can kind of see where Hype 2 was just a slightly boosted version of that. And then top is an even bigger boosted version than that. So they just added a bit more without losing control or going into bloat or boom too much. I mean, in my opinion, is the most noticeable part. If you've heard a lot of the Harman Tuck sets lately, this one actually has a little bit of impact to it. Fills in that market of people who are looking for a more natural than leaned out technical 1+8. Having heard long arcs recently, they probably should have dipped the sub bass, as the mid bass impact is nice, but would have added a touch of clarity. So another set that looks similar to top is Fudu Verse 1. And if you look at the bass shelf, you can kind of see what Fudu did. And they brought the sub bass down just a little bit, poke this up a little bit, and you end up with a smoother glide through the bass. I think that was a pretty good move. Treble-wise, they rose a little earlier and then stayed a bit lower. And like I said, this kind of peak out on the treble side, just a little bit, a hair too much. As soon as you hit a little bit above the Harman line, you tend to be in the danger zone. And this one's kind of in the danger zone depending on what your source is. But again, as I was talking about, this signature, not all that unique to top. You can find it at various price points. Verse 1 sounds great on the topping. Doesn't sound so great on the B1S. But the topping actually brings out the treble extension, the treble level, whereas it does the same on the top, but that's not a good thing because it's already elevated. So, as I said, just similar signatures, different price points. It's not all that unique. Done kind of well, but you can just find it at other prices. So the mids, and this is the part that goes wonky on the wrong source. It's just not a very technical set to begin with, and a more of a V sound when the upper mids are kind of up a little bit more. Just throws off the mids, throws off the staging, and it's the parts that everyone complains about, V-shaped mids. The lower drops back a little bit, and the upper goes forward, and it gets a little bit sharp. Kind of a classic V-shape problem. And they just push the upper mids just a hair too much, and it can easily be a little too much, especially with a little bit of volume. The lower can sound a little bit blurry on Pearl Jam's 10. Pretty much all the songs on Pearl Jam 10, dynamic driver's okay, but you can just hear that little bit of blurriness, and that's what you don't want to hear on a hybrid, especially a hybrid at $500. They should have dipped the sub bass so it's a little bit clearer. It's a very fun, likable sound for a set that's not $500 and not a 1+8. I mean, I will be the first to admit that I like listening to it, but I probably wouldn't want to spend $500 for it. Treble just generally boosted just enough to get over the bass, but on some sources, that lower treble is a step too far. Like those peaky upper mids, lower treble just a bit too far. and the upper is not enough. You know, they really tried to do a delicate balance on these guys. You know, this little bit of pickiness and trying to hear this over this, you know, you got to have the right source to pull this off. And yeah, just a really hard, a lot of the mix reviews kind of ended up zoning in on this particular area, and it's just really hard to get right. And tips and sources, all these things, you're trying to get it to where there's a balance between the two. And I think for treble fans, it's just on the safe side. There isn't a 1+8 that stretches balanced armature dynamics here as the bass takes to your attention. Again, the tuning just doesn't showcase balanced armature's technical performance or treble extensions. It's very much a do no wrong style, right? Pick a safer, make sure it's not metallic, make sure there's no fatigue or sibilance. It's one of those sets that really kind of brought everything down to do no wrong. And then stage, you know, most dependent on your source. It can go from quite flat if it's very peaky in the upper mids and in your head to more spacious in depth if you bring down the V shape like my B1S does. So that's a quick overview of what I got on top. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.